Now it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into the biggest news stories in the spotlight right now. It's Friday, so that means we are talking a bit of entertainment. Eternals, the latest superhero film from Marvel, is now in cinemas across Korea, and this one is extra special for Korean fans as a well-known local actor is in that movie.
Yes. We also want to find out how the cinema experience has changed since many of the COVID-19 restrictions were lifted earlier this week, and poke around for any fresh information about a potential second series of Squid Game. For that, we cross to Jason Bechervaise, our go-to film critic. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Mogyeon, and good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Now, the latest addition to the Marvel Extended Universe came out on Wednesday in South Korea. Like Mark said, it's called Eternals, and it's at the top of the box office. What do you make of it, and how has the performance of Korean actor Ma Dong-seok been received not only in Korea but also around the world?
Yeah, I went to see it yesterday. It's an interesting film. It's directed by Chloe Zhao, the Oscar-winning filmmaker. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting mix of kind of Marvel, focus on spectacle, trying to attract those younger viewers and the fans of the series. But obviously, Chloe Zhao, I think, is trying to do something different with it. Whether it works or not, I think it's debatable. It hasn't been that well received, and in fact, I think it's one of the, if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's one of the kind of lowest scores. It's a very action-packed film. There's a lot going on. I think many would argue there's just too much going on. There are lots of characters, including Ma Dong-seok, and I think one of the complaints, one of the characters played by Ma Dong-seok rather, I think one of the complaints has been that he hasn't had as much screen time that one would like.
Right, well, it's going to be interesting to see how Marvel can tie all these different storylines that it's building together at some point in the future. But how has the cinema-going experience changed now that South Korea has loosened all these COVID-19 restrictions that prevented people from having, shall we say, the full cinema experience? Does it feel different now when you go? And do you think that's a good or a bad thing?
Well, I went to cinema yesterday, and I was actually able to eat some popcorn, which is the first time in a long while. I actually ate the whole box because it'd been so long. I didn't feel too good afterwards. But yeah, basically what Korea is doing is I think reflecting its overall policy in terms of, lifting some of the measures. They're doing it slowly. They're doing it quite differently compared to the UK, which has had this so-called Freedom Day, and just lifting all the restrictions. Here you have like 1 or 2 screens per theatre, which kind of called vaccine pass screens, where you can eat popcorn, drink Coke, and take your mask off. But you obviously have to be fully vaccinated, or prove that you can't get vaccinated if you're under 18, for example. And yeah, it was interesting. I think it's one step towards normality. It's going to take a while, but I think the optics are important. I think being able to eat popcorn, I think it's important for those who want to see cinemas that are safe. And I think if you've got seats kind of cordoned off, you can't eat popcorn. I think that does kind of signify that perhaps cinemas are a place for transmission, which actually they're not. There's been very little, if any, transmission found in cinemas.
And also, Jason, that with more people getting vaccinated and cinemas being allowed to open more regularly, do we expect to see a slew of blockbusters that have been collecting dust for being released in a short burst? And are there any films you're particularly looking forward to that's due out before the end of this year?
Well, it's all very uncertain. Korean film industry, in terms of announcing local releases, they tend to do it quite late. And so, as of yet, there's been no major tentpole releases announced. There's some romantic comedies. There's also a couple of action films that are going to be released this year. So there's nothing serious. Directed by Jung Ga-young, starring John Jong-seo from Burning. There's also Jongno-man Romance with Yoo Sung-young. So they're the two romantic comedies, and there's also a couple of action films as well. Like I say, in terms of the big tentpoles, it's just that there is a lack of certainty there. I think perhaps we'll see some big films released in the Lunar New Year, the Solal. There's Han Jae-rin's Emergency Declaration, which actually screened in Cannes. That still hasn't been released. There's a whole bunch of films. In fact, there's over 80 films 80 Korean films or thereabouts awaiting release. So I think it's almost going to be like buses, where it's taken so long for these films to get released, and then we're going to see a lot of films released at the same time. But there are a number of Hollywood films being released at the end of the year. There's West Side Story, directed by Steven Spielberg. There's The Matrix Resurrections. There's Edgar Wright's The Last Night in Soho, and there's also the new Spider-Man film.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that Edgar Wright movie. I've seen this trailer, and it does look something very unique indeed. And he's a wonderful filmmaker.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. It is actually shot by Chung Jong-hun. This is the cinematographer that often collaborates with Park Chan-wook. He shot the Old Boy, The Handmaiden.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing these kind of talent working overseas in Hollywood.
Well, I highly suggest any viewers who might not have seen the trailer for that new Edgar Wright film to check it out on YouTube. But finally,
can't wait.
Yeah, definitely, it's amazing. Everyone's still loving Squid Game, of course, smashing records, making Netflix bags of money. The question on everyone's lips is, will there be a second series? Or do you think this could be the case that this might spread across multiple series? Do you have any inside scoop on that? Because we assume that Netflix would essentially give the creators of the show a blank checkbook at this point.
Well, certainly Hwan Dong-seok is in a very good position, and although he probably didn't make, I mean, it's all relative, of course, but given the success of the show, I don't think he made all that much money from the first series. But certainly going into the second series, he can ask for lots of money. And as I don't know what's happening, I'm sure Netflix are busy behind the scenes trying to get the talent together. I can't imagine why they wouldn't do a season 2. It seems inevitable to me, given how successful the first season is. And so it's just, I think, trying to get the talent on board and enticing them, yes, with big checks, and perhaps trying to lure them in other ways too. So perhaps working on other projects as well.
Well, I'm already excited to see the second series of Squid Game.
Me too.
Now, anyhow, that was Seoul-based film critic Jason Bechervaise. And thank you, Jason, as always. We hope to talk to you again soon.
Take care.